Speaker is social worker Amy Prudencio with the Lifesavers Program at Carbondale Community High School. I want to thank Gil Kronig for being our greeter today. I had Carl down, but thank you, Gil. I might have had everybody mixed up. So Carl, be prepared. You might be on the schedule for later instead. Cindy Byes, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today?
Yeah, if you'll all stand, if you're able, we can do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to
the flag
the United
the
States
States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cindy. Moment of reflection today. This is one of my favorites for Mother's Day this past Sunday. I want to thank all the mothers in the room or on the call for being amazing people, and for your guidance and hard work to get a child to adulthood or 5 years old or 18 months or wherever you may be. So happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers and grandmothers on the call. For those who are only on via phone, I'll read this for you. It's the Mom Nutrition Facts. A serving size is one amazing woman, and the amount of the daily value per serving is 1,000% unconditional love, 500% patience, 100% hard work, 100 plus 110% multitasking, less than 1% sleep, 150% caffeine, 0% regret, and my favorite on this is the percent daily value may be higher or lower based on the behavior of the child.
Very good.
So I know that as a parent, my children are often, sometimes that's better, sometimes it's worse. But thank you all. Happy Mother's Day, all the moms on the call. Today's song time, our song of the week is Smile. I'm going to go with a classic today.
And the world smiles with you, sing a song. Don't be weary, just be cheery all day long. Whenever troubles smile, and the world smiles with you, sing a song.
All right. We'll go back to sharing here. We're going to go with Carl Flowers. Would you please introduce our guest today?
Sure. I don't see any guests. I see a visiting Rotarian Arbach is here as usual. Welcome, sir. And maybe I'm missing someone else. Our guest speaker is here. I can't see my full window of attendees here, but welcome. The Carbondale Rotary is always happy to welcome guests, and if you are a guest, welcome.
So I actually don't see our guest speaker today, so I don't know if that was Linda or Gayla
That's why I couldn't find her.
coordinated that. Yeah, I don't see her on the call today, so that's, if somebody could reach out to her, that'd be great. Got a couple more things before that section. Otherwise, we'll play it by ear. Club announcements. Our centennial event is completed. We're actually 73 projects, maybe 74 projects completed now. We've got the flashlights completed. We did a pickup, trash pickup this past weekend. So let's keep going on those 100 little things. About 3/4 of the way there. I see something in the chat.
So Rick, we have completed the cups and plates and
Okay.
utensils for the warming center, but we still could use a few more flowers.
Okay.
So as you're continuing to plant flowers and things this spring, do let me know.
Perfect. My family just planted 4 plants. So there you go. There's 4 more for you. I had a couple questions regarding our centennial celebration. I'm gonna do that for our endowment increase. So as a reminder here, we had elected to make a push for $100,000 in our endowment fund, and our club currently has an endowment fund, but we're looking to increase that up to $100,000 to celebrate our 100th anniversary here, our centennial. What that does is that's a one-time gift. It can be planned giving. It can be something that's in a will. It can be something that's paid over a couple years. My family's paying that over 2 years. But that $100,000 that goes into that endowment, we can only use the interest off of that. So if we hit $100,000, we can realistically estimate that we will have $5,000 coming out of that every year as interest that can be utilized for our local grants, for our scholarships. So that increases the capacity that we have to give every year. So I'm gonna unmute Gayla here and ask her to just give us a quick rundown of what we have going on this year. I know you guys have already met regarding our grant requests this year, but I believe we were over $15,000 this year in grant requests.
Rick, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Gayla.
Okay. Basically, we've had requests for over $23,000, and we're trying to work through some other situations as far as our bylaws and whether or not we want to concentrate and stay with youth programs only. You know that the tax season has been extended until May 17th, and Jan Payne has requested that we wait until after the 17th to try to meet again and go through and look at what monies we have available before we actually do extend the grants.
So the reason we pushed for this endowment is because it does set up a permanence to the foundation. At this point, the foundation is mostly money in, money out. So the money that gets donated every year is set as is set in such a way that as those funds come in, they're spent. If we set up this endowment, we already have one set up, but if we establish this endowment, I know it's a lofty goal to go for $100,000, but we're already $12,000 committed between I think Shane and Christine and myself, and we had a couple sponsors for our centennial event. These are separate gifts than your annual contributions if you're making annual contributions right now, because those annual contributions go to that annual spending. So this was set up to say, let's go above and beyond, and let's make sure that we can continue what we're doing in the future and make our money go a little further.
Rick, the other thing I want to insert here is that currently the money in, we do not have enough to satisfy the request for the grants too. So that's another consideration that's holding up the grant request for this year.
So by doing this, we can continue. If we continue to raise the $5,000-$10,000 a year, that's fantastic. We should continue to do that, whether that's through fundraisers or individual giving, to reach that threshold to be able to satisfy the local grant requests that we have and the scholarships that we have. But this is an opportunity for us to say, okay, I'm going to pledge, and the form is listed here, and then when we move here a little later, I will copy that link. That's the short version of it. That goes directly to a private form that goes to our Rotary Club email account. And then you can put in your pledge. Here's my name, here's my phone number, how I want to be. Your email is how we track who has submitted the form. It's per email. If you want to give $1,000, that's fantastic. That's what we're requesting that everybody do in at least a pledge format. If you'd like to do more than that, you'd like to insert the Rotary Club of Carbondale into your will, into your planned giving. This is a great way to do that into the foundation so that those funds continue in perpetuity. And, you know, from an operation standpoint, it makes it easier for us if we do have $10,000 this year or $15,000 next year in requests for local grants. We're able to satisfy those and have our impact of the club go a little further. So
Rick, we have 3 scholarships currently, the Klingberg, the Maori, and the Armstrong, that I think to go to high school, junior college, and the SIU. What is that funded out of, and how large are those scholarships?
Gayla, do you want to answer that? As far as I believe those are funded out of the foundation, but I don't know.
They are.
I don't know to what extent.
They are.
And I don't know if they're fully funded each year. That's
Every year we try to fund those, and if we get requests, there are payments made for the scholarships. And I know that we do have the funds to satisfy those. The high school has requested their money for their scholarship, and we plan to get that to them right away. I don't know that we've heard anything from John A. Logan yet, and but if they are requested, we do make those grants.
You know how large those are? Are those 1,000 or are they more?
They're $1,000 each.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a question that has come up recently, whether or not we continue to have named scholarships.
Yes. That might be something to consider, and for how long. Because they weren't funded by an endowment, they're funded by us.
Correct.
so that's part of what this endowment would do, is give us the funding long term to continue those. So it isn't just, are we asking for money every year from everybody to do that?
Well, $100,000 endowment would only raise $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year.
Correct, but that would be 5, 6, 7,000 that we don't have today. So that's the point of, you know, if everybody can pledge that, and everybody can spread those funds across a couple years if they need to, or can pledge that in their planned giving. It's an opportunity to have that in the long term, that it lives long beyond all of us.
But we're spending close to 20,000, did you say, for all our projects?
Not every year. So that's this year, I think, was the highest that they had. Gayla, you might correct me on that, but
It is the highest. We had 13 different requests, and normally we do not have that many requests.
Yeah,
And
we don't have.
That's the hesitation and what we're trying to work through before we actually do make the grants.
Yeah, we don't necessarily fund all the requests. You committee decides which ones we have monies for.
Well, and that's true. And in the past, they have gone to youth-related programs. And that's another question. We had some requests that were not youth-related.
Mhm.
And we want to get that taken care of. And we just feel like now's the time to do it. Look at our bylaws and look at any other changes that we might need to make.
so as we approached our centennial, we wanted to do something big. The Centennial Committee elected to shoot for $100,000 as an endowment fund. And between some of the folks that are on the call, some that are not on the call, we're already up over $12,000 from members of the club. So if others would like to contribute to that, you know, it's greatly appreciated, and can really, even if it's even if we don't necessarily hit our $100,000, I think that's a great effort to work towards between our current members, past members, et cetera, that anything from a $1,000 or $200 payments over 5 years to reach that $1,000 per person. If everybody in our club did it, we'd have over $40,000. And that's not including business donations that have gone towards that. So,
Rick, one other thing, Jan Payne and Jim Grant will be giving the program June 16th. So that will be a meeting that will give everybody an update of how much money we have in the charitable foundation and what we're looking to do.
Okay.
in the meantime, if you'd like, I encourage everybody to join me. I've already made my pledge. And like I said, I have 11 or 12 other people that have made their pledges as well. So you can contact me. You can contact Jim Grant. You can fill out this Google form. Like I said, this goes directly to our Gmail account so it's a fillable form. It's private and confidential, that all of that comes in, and then that information will go to Jim and the foundation. So these contributions are separate from what we're giving directly. It's separate from the district dues or the Rotary International dues. This is a local foundation contribution to help pad help cushion and set up a long-term support for the community. Okay. Continuing on here, the Adopt a Spot cleanup, and I had a picture that apparently I didn't paste in there for this past weekend's cleanup, but I want to thank Shane, and I think, did I see Cindy in that picture? I think I saw Jerry in that picture. And Pam. Anybody I'm forgetting there, Cindy?
Sharon Harris Johnson was there, and Shane's wife.
Shane's wife, awesome. And they picked up 4 or 5 bags of trash in our Adopt a Spots. So I want to thank you guys for that, and thank you for I know that I got my invoice from Jim Grant this week. If you're able to, please continue supporting the Heartland Warming Center, or the Heartland Catering and Warming Center project that we're giving on a weekly basis. We're still supporting the Warming Center for lunches. Our foundation donation challenge. I want to thank Shane for matching club foundation donations in May, all the way up through Linda Meredith in October. If you'd like to continue this on, I think it's a great program, a great plan that helps us meet those needs of those local grants. Shane has already put in the links for the duties in the chat. So please sign up for those so we have coverage each week. We are moving back to a hybrid in-person meeting beginning June 2nd. So the next few weeks, we're going to be working through some of those things and discussing food service options. An online format is still going to be available for the foreseeable future. So those who can't make it in person can still join us, and we'll have a PowerPoint Zoom set up in the room. I have it for a couple other meetings that I take part in, and basically have a Brady Bunch on the wall. You can still see the folks that are not there, and then we've got a camera facing the room so that those that are on Zoom can see the speaker, can see everybody else that's talking and participating in the meeting. So keep that in your calendars. The June 2nd, we're planning on moving back to in-person meetings. Hope to see you there. Some district news updates. Shane, I don't see Brooke on the call. Would you mind touching base on the Satellite Club?
Sure. The Satellite Club met on the first Tuesday of the month. We have 13 members today. There are 4 that are setting in proposed that hopefully they'll make a decision in the next 30 days. So the club continues to grow, and I think they're growing organically, and they're doing a good job. So keep an eye out for them, and there's a link. If you're interested in attending one of the meetings, let me know, and I'll send you the link to their next meeting.
Shane, did you say 4 more new members that are looking at joining?
Yep.
Wow. So we just approved 3. And I'll get those welcome packets out to Brooke this week. But wow, that's fantastic. Let's continue to grow. If they keep growing at this rate, they're going to be bigger than the Carbondale Club soon. We might have to play some catch up here, guys. Some Rotary International news. May is Youth Service Month, so let's continue all of our efforts to support youth in our communities. Here's our weekly polio update. So new polio cases this week. There's only 2 in Pakistan, 1 in Liberia, 1 in Senegal, and 1 in South Sudan. So there are, we still have some that are out there, the environmental samples here, but we're getting so close. So let's continue the work to eradicate polio. And I encourage you to encourage all of your friends to get the COVID vaccine as well. We push for the polio vaccine, and in COVID year right now, I participated in an event in Murfreesboro that had a drive-up vaccine clinic, and we had over 70 families come through, and one of those families, both adults in the car, got vaccinated. They hadn't had a chance to get vaccinated otherwise, and I talked to a friend of mine Monday night that said, I haven't gotten vaccinated yet. I just haven't carved out the time. Let's get those people vaccinated. Let's get it done so we can get through this.
Hey, Rick,
Yes, sir.
I would feel much safer about meeting in person if I knew that all the attendants and people having lunch together were immunized. I think we should assume that all attendees will be immunized.
I think that's definitely.
Is that an unreasonable request?
I don't think it is. I think, honestly, looking around at the call, I don't want to call anybody out, but I could probably say that most, if not everybody that's on the call here today, just from my conversations with everyone, is that everybody on the call is vaccinated. So we haven't made the final determination as to what those guidelines are going to be for meeting in person, but we have the green light from the school district to start meeting. And Alan, I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation if we're going to be eating lunch together. We've also talked about not actually eating lunch and just having a grab and go lunch at the end. So have our meeting start at noon as it has been, and then at 1 o'clock when we're wrapped up with our portion of it, we'll have a boxed lunch that everybody could take with them as they leave. So that way, if you wanted to stay around and eat lunch with some friends and socialize further, you could. Or you could take your lunch with you and go. So that's something to consider as we approach that. So thank you for that suggestion, Alan. And I think I know that I have a coffee meeting on Friday with a friend, and he and I are both vaccinated. That was one of the discussions we had before we set that meeting. Is, are you vaccinated? Yes, and we're going to meet. We're meeting on the patio at Long Branch Cafe. So we're eating outside, we're vaccinated, and that makes me more comfortable to have that meeting with him. So I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation, Alan, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Now it's time for some of your good news. Who has good news to share? I think I just shared one of mine, that I'm having coffee with a friend on Friday. So, but who else has some good news to share today?
I do. This is Faith. Commencement was successful on Saturday. All of the sections on Saturday, there was no rain. Hallelujah. And we were able to push out, I don't know how many other grads there were, but I'm only concentrating on the 30 dental hygiene students that graduated. And it was a good, happy time for all involved. So I got to serve as marshal, so that way I had access to the floor and was able to even get pictures of them as they were coming off the stage. So proud of the dental hygiene class of 2021.
Rick, I
My
have a
good
couple.
news is I opened my pool and the water is all the way up to 56 degrees. So I'm praying for warm weather.
Rick, I have a couple of things. Linda and I were recognized last night at Carbondale City Council as recipients of a Historic Preservation Award for the mural project that we just recently completed on the east side of our building downtown that's at the corner of Washington and Jackson Streets. We recently completed a collage of some of the historic signage from the different businesses and advertising on that side of the building. As I say, we were recognized with an award from the Historic Preservation Commission. And then my second bit of good news is today is Linda and my 36th wedding anniversary. So I'll be paying hefty fines.
Congratulations.
So I have some good news. My son graduates on Saturday from Creighton University, for those of you that remember the Creighton rivalry with SIU. And then also my mother successfully went through pacemaker replacement surgery last week. So that's my good news.
I have some news. Yesterday, we invited Carmelita into a house that my wife and I inherited. And we've decided to, rather than to try to sell the stuff for nickel and dimes, we're just giving the contents to the warming center, whatever they can use. And she walked through, and within a couple of weeks, the place will be pretty bare because most of that stuff can be used. We'll need some people, and I know Gail has already offered, we'll need some people to help us move that stuff over to the warming center and then up to the third floor. She's not taking any couches, so there's no huge things to go up there, but there are a lot of chairs and tables and stuff. So that was kind of nice. A long-term relationship we had with our neighbor, Leela Marvin, and we were, tasked with cleaning out the house, and we thought this was the best way to do it. And Carmelita was quite pleased. And so anyhow, so that's some good news from our side.
That's fantastic news, Jerry. Thank you so much for that donation to the warming center. I know Carmelita's been somewhat shocked with a lot of the support that we've given and the community has to that program. So that's amazing. If you do have some furnishings or other things that she won't take or can't take, Jerry, let me know. I have a friend who is in need of some things and kind of starting over a little bit. So if there's anything you have furnishings wise, if he can use it, I'll try and coordinate that in the next couple weeks. So thank you so much. Any other good news to share today? All right. We'll keep going here. Sergeant at Arms, Gail White, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I mentioned a couple of things that I will be fining myself for, and then I did notice in the Carbondale communique, and I believe I saw it somewhere else in the news, that Sharon Johnson and Rick were photographed delivering flashlights to the warming center.
Okay, yeah, we definitely did that.
No other fines that I'm aware of.
I love it. We get fined for finishing out 100 little things and getting publication on it. That's great. Thanks, Gail.
It's just the publication part that you're fined for.
Here I am muted. Now it's time for our guest speaker. We have Amy Prudencio from Carbondale Community High School joining us. Welcome, Amy. Do you need to share your screen, or are you?
I did, if I could just share a couple things. So yes, if you are willing to let me have permissions, that would be awesome.
We can do that. So I am going to, I'm going to mute myself and.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to come and talk with you all today. I'm laid back, so I know it's kind of hard to just jump right in on Zoom, but I welcome any comments or questions along the way. I appreciate Dr. Flowers asking me to come. She asked if I could cover a little bit about our counseling during COVID and how we're reaching students, as well as talking about our Lifesavers program. So if it's okay, I'd like to start with kind of counseling through COVID and just those dynamics in reaching our students. And then I'll end with our Lifesavers and how we're moving forward. So what we do know is that, and many of you know that too, that most mental health services that kids and adolescents receive is built into the school system. Most kids go to school, most of their time is spent in the school day. And so most of the services that they are going to receive is in the school day. When COVID happened and schools shut down, of course, the counselors, myself, our administration, our schools were saying, how are we going to support our students? How are we going to reach them and make sure that they're getting the mental health supports that we know they need, that we know that we provide during a normal school year? How will we reach our students? So we tried to come together. We are lucky to have a trauma and resiliency team here at our high school. We have PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and supports. We are thankful to have 5 school counselors, myself, and a great administration team with wonderful teachers. So we have all worked together to try to be creative. We first started with a survey to our students to identify how they've gotten through the springtime and the summer, what were their biggest stressors, what were some of the challenges that their families and that they have experienced. Some of those included financial strains, loss of jobs, additional anxiety, fears, depression, sadness, missing friends. So a lot of those questions pertain to their age group. And by hearing some of the feedback, we were able to figure out how we were going to reach kids. As you know, we started out remote like many schools. We still, at this point, though we've been open, about 70% of our students remain on remote. So that's a large number for us, I think, that are still choosing remote, which means there's a lot of students we don't see day to day. But we did use the survey results to try to reach kids. We were creative like many schools, and we started training our teachers on recognizing trauma. We put together a presentation at the beginning of the year to our teachers just to help them. We had 27 strategies to quickly connect with your students. We know from data that one way to help kids that have experienced trauma is to make sure we have connection. And so really this year was about connecting with our students in the classroom as counselors and social worker, every opportunity we could to connect with our students so that they knew how to get a hold of us when they needed us. We created, and I'll share, let me see if I can get to it. A lot of us, many of us went into that creativity mode and created some virtual offices. So if we go to the counseling department here, this was our group. And we all, for example, created offices because our kids were online and we wanted to make sure they knew where to find us and how they could connect with us. So of course, we are reaching out to kids, but we wanted to make sure that they knew they could schedule an appointment quickly. We provided our mental health resource page we put together, which included several online resources, numbers to contact. We also, let me get back to, it's kind of hidden behind the share circle. I created a virtual calming room for kids that they could use as just a place to go. I asked teachers to share with all the students. I went into classes by Zoom and showed kids, we talked about positive mental health. We talked about things they may be dealing with. And then this was just a small thing that I put together that had self-care, mindfulness, calming, movement, visual relaxation. But in it, they were able to go through, for example, And this is a little bit about self-care. And so I put together some videos that were age appropriate for teenagers, but also that their little siblings could watch. And it just talked about what is self-care, and used videos that they are already in YouTube all the time. This is another one of mindfulness. So talks a little bit about what mindfulness is for kids and teens, and then just a few strategies that include breathing, some meditation. So I tried to share this. We put it on all of our virtual offices so that students could easily find these resources. So that's one thing we did. We also, let's see if I can get out of this one. Okay, we also, like I said, presented to our teachers to try to help give them a sense of understanding. I know our teachers needed help with self-care, so we've also tried to work with our teachers, but strategies that they connect with their kids. We had our 7th hour remote group that really was just about teachers reaching out to a small groups of kids to help connect with them, to be able to remind them that the counselors and I are here for any needs they may have. A lot of us set up Google Texts. For counselors and social workers, we generally don't text with students. So that was a new thing, but looking at our age population, most of the kids text, they do apps. So we all joined in and got approval to do Google Texts or burner apps that had special numbers. And we gave those to families and kids and let them know the times, but it was a quick way to connect with our kids and easy for them to access us. A lot of kids are more likely to use texting than they are to email or fill an online form out. So again, trying to be creative so that the kids knew where we were and that we were here quickly to try to connect them with mental health supports and services. We also, again, tried, I will say our numbers are lower this year. When we think about it, a lot of times kids connect because we physically make those connections. We're here in person, they're in the school building, they see each other, they know where we are, they pass by and say, hey, can I talk with you? So those opportunities, unfortunately, were taken. And so the kids that have come back, we are able to see them in person, and that's been great, and they know we're right here. But continuing to reach the remote students is still a challenge. We asked students at the beginning of the year, some of those survey results showed us that a lot of kids had increased levels of anxiety, increased levels of depression, and missing some of those normal day-to-day routines. And I think we've seen that. But we try to help identify our community agencies. So we do a lot of referrals to Centerstone. We are doing a lot to Shawnee Health Services. We also had a new group this year that is grant-based. It's part of Southern Illinois Violence Prevention Program. So we joined with them. They're under the Trauma and Resiliency bigger network, but they've been a great resource for us to refer students. I will say also, we've had some challenges with that. Again, with remote, those are phone calls often or Zooms. Our kids are already logged in quite a bit. We are 4 days synchronous, if for those of you that may not know how our learning looks. So 4 days synchronous, which means students in remote are logged into classes from 8:20 to 12:45 with a teacher and a class much like this. So already spending that much time just in classes 4 days a week. And that doesn't include the time they need to log back in the afternoons to get work done. So when we talk about some of those challenges this year, Zoom fatigue was real. Kids felt higher levels of stress over navigating the online learning programs, exhausted by being online for so long and having to complete work, just missing those kind of normalcies that we had in school. So that has been hard. We have seen a lot of changes in grade. So it's increased levels of stress. Pretty much every conversation first semester was, I'm having a hard time coping with this. I feel overwhelmed. I don't know how to do this. I'm failing. Those were a lot of our conversations with our students. When schools opened, of course, we try to encourage them, if you and your family feel safe, if that feels comfortable to you, we are open and welcome and following safety guidelines. But you may feel more assured if you can come to school and actually be with your teachers and kind of do learning back in the classroom. So as families felt comfortable, as we continue to practice our safety here at the school and assure parents, students have felt better for those that have come in. So some of those natural learning can happen when we're in person. So while we have been very creative and learned how to teach and provide counseling in a pandemic, we know that that's honestly not the best delivery of services. Even counseling is really hard, but we do, kids are willing. We do phone calls, like I said, texts, we check on a lot of kids. Our normal referrals would come from teachers, would come from students, would come from parents. We've had less of them, but I know it's because students are at home. So we are continuing to try to deliver those services. We also offered an online counseling group we put together. It was Persevering Through the Pandemic, which just talked a lot about promoting a positive mindset, coping with these changes, practicing strategies. While we had large numbers sign up, small numbers attended. Again, it was Zoom, and I think that can be exhausting when they're doing it all day already. So we are continuing to adjust and planning for next year, but our kids know where we are. We've gone into almost every classroom to try to let them know how to contact us and the best ways to reach us and that we're here for them. But it has been challenging this year. Many of us would say we're thankful for the ways we've tried to be creative and thankful for this year and coming back, but looking forward to this being over so that we can hopefully get our kids, all our kids back in the building and be able to have those connections again and make sure kids are getting all the services they need. So that's kind of where we were with our mental health supports. We will continue on. Right now, we're kind of connecting kids to summer mental health services and making sure that any families that are interested, that kids, that we are connecting them for those summer services. As far as Lifesavers, many of you are probably aware and have had your children go through Lifesavers. Originally, it was started in the 80s after a child lost his life to suicide, and his mother was part of the beginning of the program, which is amazing. And we have evolved over the years and really look at what Carbondale High School students need, since we mainly, it is our program here at Carbondale High School. And so we are a peer-led peer support group where our students are take pretty intensive training, a weekend of training where kids learn how to be active listeners, how to recognize some signs and symptoms of other students that may be having thoughts of suicide, to be able to recognize bullying, to be able to recognize maybe relationship challenges, and then how to get them to an adult. As the internet and social media, when we started this, social media didn't exist. Now it's the biggest way we communicate. Our kids are now taught to recognize that on social media and how to get to a sponsor. So all of us, we are available that kids can say, hey, I was on Instagram and saw this post. Can you check on them? We do that throughout the school year, night or day, check in on families that maybe their child has posted something, and we just want to make sure we communicate and make sure they're safe. So it evolved into our social media platform where our kids are active listeners. They have the eyes to look, and then to get them to an adult is what we train them. They're not counselors, and they are never tasked with that huge responsibility, but they are peer helpers and help let us be aware so that we may seek out the kids in need and get them services that they need. We also do things around the school. Last year we couldn't, well, last year we did actually in the fall. It was Start with Hello, which is part of Sandy Hook Promise. So our Lifesavers try to promote the positive mental health too. So we did in the fall Start with Hello program. We'll do it again next year, where we spend a week just promoting inclusion and connection from students to students in the classes and in the hallways. And so the Lifesavers help plan the events for that week and just try to promote that. That's part of Sandy Hook Promise. We also have Rachel's Club, part of Rachel's Challenge, if many of you are aware. That comes from the Columbine shootings. That is a positive program that came out of Columbine, but we started that last year, was our first year, because we really geared towards freshmen. Our Lifesavers in the upper class helped with that program. But again, trying to focus on mental health, positive mental health, connection with our kids, social interactions that are positive, allowing our kids to really take the initiative and stage to lead those is what we're doing. So Rachel's Club, we will be doing that again this next year. And the Lifesavers and Rachel's Club work together to try to promote this across our building and include as many kids as possible. Lifesavers also does other community involvement. somehow we've been a part of fire safety for years. So it's not anything to do with us, but we love the fire department. I think they appreciate our kids coming up with the skits and being willing to perform for the younger elementary. It gives our high schoolers that feeling of being, proud and able to represent the school. They help the fire department, and the fire department's great to our kids. So we love to get out there and show that we have some great kids in Lifesavers, but the positive message we're trying to promote and helping those elementary school kids maybe join when they come to high school. So we are always interested in more community and our school-based, awareness. So those are a few things happening this year. And again, we're already planning for next year. We're hoping for full force. We're open, but we'll bring it down if that's not what it looks like. So that was a little fast. I wanted to make sure I didn't keep you past the time. Does anybody have questions for me?
I just want to say thank you for being so supportive of kids during this past year and being creative and thinking outside the box. I know that I have younger kids, and the pandemic year of being inside and remote learning and then going back to hybrid and doing different things like that at various levels has been very stressful for them. And adults and kids alike are going through anxiety and depression things right now. And the more you can do to support that, the better. So thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you.
Amy, do you
Yeah.
primarily rely on the students to come to you, or do you have maybe parents or grandparents come to you if they sense that their child or grandchild may be experiencing some anxiety or have some things going on that you might be able to help with?
We encourage it all. So I often have a lot of parents and grandparents call to say, hey, I'm worried about my child, my student. Could you check in with them? Could we set up regular counseling services? Could we have referrals to community? So yes, we welcome, a lot of times we will have parents called and concerned. And during this pandemic, we've had a lot of parents because, you're with your child seeing changes, seeing the challenges they're going through, and we get worried. I'm a parent too. And, my first thought is, what's available at the school where my kids already go. And so we are available. We're again lucky to have the counselors and myself, and also community agencies that are working with us. So when we are always looking for those networks. But yes, parents, grandparents can call, and we get students right away or set up that remote call, texting. I share with parents, here's this text number, so when you see it coming, it's me. But it's helped really connect with families. So yep, we take all those as referrals.
Amy, thank you also for all the work you're doing. I wonder, do you keep data on sort of the causes of the stressors? So for example, during the pandemic, do you see more students stressed because of economic issues where a parent has lost a job, or because of isolation, or because of health concerns about a family member? Do you have a sense of what the biggest stressors are?
So right at the beginning of the year, throughout the year, those are in our conversations and we always talk about, so give me when you say you're overwhelmed, what's the first thing that comes to your mind that feels overwhelming? We might do it that way in our conversation, and then we're able to kind of identify those top three. But our survey did ask, we asked a lot of a lot of our students to fill out their survey, and this was part of their registering, getting their Chromebook. So we really tried, we gave gift cards. So while we know we would not get the full population, which we would love, obviously that's your best data, is the highest amount of feedback, but those were some of the questions, and we were able to break down. We are probably we looked at doing an end of the year to see how they feel now, having gone through the year. We thought there would be higher numbers of economic stressors. I thought that might be one of the highest, actually, and maybe that's because I'm a social worker, and so I'm working with a lot of families, and that is something that I'm seeing through the summer and spring. I was delivering quite a bit of supplies to families, but actually the biggest stress was the isolation and being without friends, which makes sense. They are teenagers, and even amongst those economic stressors, they may identify being alone and lonely to be their biggest stressor, right? So we did not keep ongoing data. We just had the survey at the beginning, and I think we're doing a survey at the end to see if we can get a little bit more feedback on that.
Amy,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Very, very interesting. The 70% remote, is that similar to other schools in Illinois, in the country, in Southern Illinois? How does that rank? And do you have data on, you know, the reasons why students choose that higher percentage choose remote still?
So I'm going to say the 70% comes from Mr. Murphy, our superintendent. I got that from him the other day. So I do not right now have that comparing to other schools. I know many schools are still have quite a bit on remote. Now, what might look different, we have a pretty strong remote program. So we are still offering, I know we've changed a bit, but because we have 4 days synchronous, that's quite a strong remote program. My kids go to a different district and they did not have synchronous days. There was 1 day a week. So maybe their remote could look less because they were not tuned into a teacher with a classroom with lessons being presented. I know for my kids, their remote program looked different. So I sent my kids to school right away because my husband and I were working. My mother was helping. I did not want her to have to teach them all day because there was not synchronous learning where a teacher was available all day the way we are providing. So I do think the way the remote learning program looks might affect how many are in person and staying home. We do monitor our attendance and our grades every week. We are watching closely and reach out to those kids. We did home visits for all of our kids that were not attending. We were strong taking Chromebooks and making sure kids had what they needed. We have called to say, please come to school. Here's how we're being safe. Would you like to talk more about that for our kids that were struggling academically? Anybody who had been struggling, we reached out to for sure to say, you know, how can we help you? But would you like to come back? Because we know that being in person has had a positive impact on kids and their grades. So we are doing like many schools. We are offering credit recovery next year built into the day. We have tried all kinds of options to help kids recover their grades. It has had an impact on their academics, and that cycles back into that mental health. When we're not doing well in school, when school doesn't feel good, that impacts our overall mental health as teenagers. There's a direct relationship there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Amy. That was a great presentation. It's about 1 o'clock. We're gonna run through the rest of our PowerPoint here quickly so everybody can be on with their way. But I greatly appreciate once again everything you're doing for the kids.
Thank you so much for having me today. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
All right. So starting next week, we have Linda Baker of the SIU Paul Simon Public Policy Institute to discuss redistricting. And then we have Jane Covey of the Sierra Club the following week. Please join us for those. And then that leads us all the way up to June 2nd, where we're back with our in-person hybrid learning or in-person/hybrid meetings. Now it is time for the four-way test. We're going to go with Linda Flowers. Would you please lead us in the four-way test?
The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number 1.
Is it the truth?
Number 2.
Is it fair to all?
Concerned?
Number 3.
Will it
Build
build
goodwill, and better friendships?
And last,
Will it be
Will it be beneficial?
For all concerned?
thank you.
Wrong window. Thank you all for joining us today, and you all have a wonderful rest of your week.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Everybody.